Sarah Chan sat in the cold white room and watched her world change forever. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with seats for representatives from 200 different alien species. Most of them were voting against humanity right now. The holographic display showed the numbers clearly. Resolution 2847C was passing by a large margin. Sarah read the title again, even though she had memorized every terrible word. Mandatory Neural Compliance Protocols for Aggressive Species. It was aimed directly at humans. The Velkari counselor stood at the center podium, his crystal-like skin catching the artificial light. His voice was smooth and cold as he spoke to the assembled aliens. The human species has shown dangerous aggressive tendencies throughout their short time in our galaxy. These neural modifications will help control their violent nature while still allowing them to serve useful purposes. Sarah's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Serve useful purposes, like they were tools instead of people. She thought about the past 50 years. Humans had joined the Galactic Council with open hearts and eager minds. They had shared their medical knowledge freely, saving millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Human engineers had rebuilt entire planets after the terrible synthesis war, working for free because it was the right thing to do. Human peacekeepers had died on distant worlds, protecting alien civilians they had never met. Sarah remembered Captain Rodriguez, who had thrown himself on a plasma grenade to save a school full of Thrakari children. The council had given him a medal posthumously, praising his sacrifice. Now they wanted to cut into human children's brains. The Aquatic Realms representative raised one of his tentacles. The humans have contributed much to our society. Perhaps we should reconsider this harsh measure. The Botanical Confederacy's ambassador rustled her leaf-like appendages in agreement. Their agricultural advances alone have prevented famine on 17 worlds. But the Velkari counselor was ready for this objection. Yes, they have been useful. That is exactly why we need these modifications. We can keep their helpful traits while removing their dangerous ones. Think of it as an upgrade. An upgrade. Sarah felt sick. The Draconic Empire's representative hissed his approval. The humans build weapons too easily. Their warships are too powerful. They think too much about fighting. Because someone has to, Sarah whispered to herself. It was true that humans had strong military technology. It was also true that they had used it almost exclusively to protect other species. When the Void Swarm had attacked the Outer Rim, human fleets had been the first to respond. When pirate bands threatened trade routes, human patrol ships kept them clear. The galaxy was safer because humans were strong. But apparently that strength scared people more than the dangers it held back. The vote continued. Species after species cast their decision. The Crystalline Collective voted yes. The Machine Federation voted yes. The Psionic Union voted yes. A few smaller species voted no, but not enough to matter. Sarah's fellow human diplomat sat in stunned silence. Ambassador Park from the Luna colony had tears in his eyes. Dr. Williams from the Mars Research Institute stared at his hands like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Velkari counselor continued his speech. These procedures are completely safe. The neural modifications will be performed on all human children at age 5. This will prevent the development of aggressive thought patterns while preserving cognitive function and creativity. Safe. They were talking about cutting into the brains of 5-year-old children, and they called it safe. Sarah remembered her own daughter, Emma, who was 6 years old and loved drawing pictures of spaceships. Would they take away Emma's dreams of exploring the stars because exploration required courage, and courage was too close to aggression? The final vote tally appeared in the air. 847 in favor, 23 against, 31 abstentions. The Velkari counselor smiled, an expression that looked wrong on his alien features. Resolution 2847C is now galactic law. All human governments have 6 months to comply with mandatory neural modification requirements. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives looked pleased, others seemed uncomfortable, like they had just done something they might regret later. Sarah stood up slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She was the senior human representative, the voice of her species in this place that had just declared war on human children. Her voice carried clearly through the vast room. For 3 centuries, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have shared our knowledge. We have shed our blood. We have asked for nothing but the chance to stand beside you as equals. The chamber grew quiet. You have looked at our strength and seen only danger. You have looked at our willingness to fight and seen only violence. You have never understood that our aggression exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Velkari counselor interrupted. Ambassador Chen, this decision is final. Your government will comply or face sanctions. Sarah laughed, and the sound was sharp and bitter. Sanctions? You think we stayed here because we had to? She turned to address the entire assembly. You mistake restraint for weakness. You think we helped you because we needed you. You believe we followed your laws because we feared your punishment. Her voice grew stronger with each word. You were wrong about all of it. Sarah picked up her datapad and deleted her diplomatic credentials with a few quick taps. Around her, the other human representatives did the same. We came to you in friendship. We offered you partnership. You have chosen to see us as a threat to be controlled rather than allies to be trusted. The chamber was completely silent now. Fine. Have it your way. Sarah gathered her things and walked toward the exit. Her fellow diplomats fell in behind her. Their footsteps echoed in the vast chamber like a countdown. At the door, Sarah turned back one last time. You wanted to know what human aggression really looks like? Keep pushing, you'll find out. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. In the human diplomatic quarters, Sarah immediately activated the emergency communication system. The message went out across all human colonies and settlements. Code Omega, full withdrawal, come home. Ambassador Park looked at her with wide eyes. Sarah, are you sure about this? If we leave now? If we stay, they'll butcher our children's minds, Sarah replied. The choice was made for us. Within hours, the order reached every human in council space. Diplomats began packing. Scientists started shutting down their research projects. Military advisors deleted their files and prepared to leave their posts. The withdrawal had begun. In the council chamber, the Velkari counselor was already having second thoughts. Perhaps we should have offered them more time to consider, he said to his aide. His aide, a younger Velkari, pulled up economic data on his crystal tablet. Sir, preliminary calculations suggest that human withdrawal could cause significant disruption to galactic infrastructure. The counselor waved a dismissive hand. They'll be back. They need us more than we need them. But deep in the council's economic databases, automated systems were already flagging problems. Trade route calculations were failing without human-designed navigation systems. Agricultural projections showed concerning gaps without human expertise. Military readiness reports indicated dangerous vulnerabilities without human peacekeeping forces. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between having human help and needing it. And Sarah Chen was done caring about the distinction. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant and watched the stars through the main view screen. His ship was one of 12 human vessels patrolling the neutral zone, keeping peace between the warring Krell hegemony and the Free Traders Alliance. His communication officer, Lieutenant Torres, turned to him with a confused expression. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command, Code Omega. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Code Omega meant total withdrawal from all council activities. He had hoped he would never see that code in his lifetime. Put it through to my ready room, he said quietly. The message was brief and clear. All human military personnel were to cease current operations and return to human space immediately. No exceptions. No delays. Marcus walked back onto the bridge and looked around at his crew. Half of them weren't human. Lieutenant Zara, his tactical officer, was Thrakari. His chief engineer, Corbin, was from the Machine Federation. They had served together for 8 years, fighting side by side in 3 different conflicts. Zara, Corbin, he said, please report to my ready room. When they arrived, Marcus didn't know how to begin. These aliens were his friends. They had saved his life more than once. Now he had to abandon them. The human government has recalled all our forces, he said simply. We're leaving council space. Zara's blue-scaled face showed shock. Sir? All of you? But the Krell have been moving, ships toward the border, without the human fleet. I know, Marcus said. I'm sorry. Corbin's mechanical voice buzzed with confusion. Admiral Webb, this unit does not understand. Have humans committed some offense? Marcus laughed bitterly. We were too good at our job. The council decided we were too dangerous to be trusted with our own children. He explained about Resolution 2847C and watched his alien friends' faces change. Zara's eyes widened with horror. Corbin's optical sensors flickered rapidly, a sign of distress in his species. This is wrong, Zara whispered. Humans have done more to protect the galaxy than any other species. My own homeworld exists because human medics stopped a plague there. It doesn't matter, Marcus said. The decision is made. The withdrawal began immediately. Human ships all across the galaxy received the same orders. Some captains tried to argue, but Earth Command was firm. Everyone comes home. Now. On the research station orbiting Kepler 442b, Dr. Elena Vasquez was packing her life's work into transport containers. She had spent 20 years developing new atmospheric processors that could turn dead worlds into gardens. Her research team was half human, half alien, and they worked like a family. Her Zephyrian colleague, Dr. Silth, watched her, pack with desperate eyes. Elena, please reconsider. Your work here could save billions of lives. My work will continue, Elena said sadly. Just not here. Dr. Morta, a Botanical Confederacy scientist, pleaded with her. We can protect you from the Council's decision. Kepler 442b is an independent research station. Their laws don't apply here. Elena stopped packing and looked at her friends. You don't understand. This isn't about me. This is about them never understanding us. She explained what the Council had voted to do. Her alien colleagues listened in growing shock. They want to modify your children's minds? Dr. Silth's voice was filled with horror. That is monstrous. Yes, Elena said simply. And now you know why we're leaving. The same scene played out across the galaxy. Human diplomats left their embassies, human teachers left their schools, human doctors left their hospitals, human engineers shut down their projects and deleted their files. On the trade station at Rigel 7, Captain Sarah Kim watched her alien business partners panic as she prepared to leave. The station's main computer system was based on human, quantum algorithms. Without her team to maintain it, the whole facility would shut down within months. You can't just leave, Station Master Velok pleaded. We have contracts. We have agreements. Sarah shrugged. Take it up with the Council. They decided humans can't be trusted. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. The Universal Translation System, which allowed different species to communicate, started producing garbled results. Most of its core programming had been written by human linguists who were now packing their bags. Quantum communication networks began failing across the galaxy. The relay stations had been designed by human engineers using human mathematics. Without maintenance, the signals grew weak and distorted. On dozens of worlds, atmospheric processors shut down when their human operators left. These machines turned poisonous air into breathable atmosphere, but they required constant adjustment and care. Only humans had the training and experience to run them properly. Food production systems crashed on 17 planets. Human agricultural techniques had increased crop yields by 400% on these worlds. Now their harvests began to fail. The Council tried to respond quickly. Emergency sessions were called. Bureaucrats scrambled to find solutions. But they had spent so many years relying on human expertise that they had forgotten how to do things themselves. Counselor Zeth Ka of the Aquatic Realms studied the economic reports with growing alarm. Trade between sectors had dropped by 35% in just 2 weeks. 3 different conflicts had erupted in areas where human peacekeepers used to patrol. Perhaps, he suggested to the emergency council session, we should reconsider Resolution 2847C. The humans might be willing to negotiate. Senior Counselor Vraktel of the Draconic Empire hissed his disapproval. We will not bow to terrorist tactics. They are trying to hold the galaxy hostage. Are they? Asked Junior Counselor Felin quietly. Or are they simply going home? The distinction was important, but Vraktel didn't want to hear it. They'll be back when they realize they need us more than we need them. Until then, we manage. Without them. But managing was proving harder than expected. The Krell hegemony had launched attacks on 3 neutral systems the moment human patrol fleets left the area. The Free Traders Alliance was struggling to maintain shipping schedules without human navigation systems. Worst of all, the complex web of treaties and agreements that kept peace between hundreds of different species was starting to unravel. Human diplomats had spent decades carefully mediating disputes and finding compromises. Without them, old grudges were beginning to surface. On Earth, President Martinez held an emergency meeting with his cabinet. The reports from across human space were encouraging. Ships and personnel were returning home safely. But the reports from Council space were deeply troubling. The galaxy is starting to fall apart without us, Defense Secretary Johnson observed. That's not our problem anymore. President Martinez replied firmly. They made their choice. They wanted to treat our children like defective machines that needed fixing. Now they can live with the consequences. Secretary of State Williams looked uncomfortable. Sir, millions of innocent civilians could die if these conflicts escalate. President Martinez's expression hardened. Millions of our children would have died if we had stayed. At least this way it won't be by our own hand. The withdrawal continued. By the end of the first month, 97% of all humans in council space had returned home. The remaining 3% were either unable to travel due to medical issues or had chosen to stay and give up their human citizenship. The galaxy began to change. Without human peacekeepers, stronger species started bullying weaker ones. Without human mediators, diplomatic solutions became rare. Without human innovation, technological progress slowed to a crawl. But in the council chambers, senior members still insisted they had made the right choice. They had eliminated a dangerous threat to galactic stability. The current problems were just temporary adjustments. They would learn to manage without humans. They had to, because humans weren't coming back. 6 months after the humans left, War Commander Theklos of the Krell hegemony studied the tactical displays in his command center. The screens showed 17 different star systems, all now under Krell control. Before the human withdrawal, these had been neutral territories protected by human peacekeeping fleets. Now they were his. The expansion proceeds ahead of schedule, his aide reported. The Free Traders Alliance has retreated from 4 more sectors. Theklos clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The humans were the only species with the will to oppose us. Without them, the galaxy is ours for the taking. It had been almost too easy. The moment the human ships left their patrol routes, Krell forces had moved in. The local defense forces were pathetic compared to Krell military might. Most systems surrendered without a fight rather than face bombardment. On the agricultural world of Ceres Prime, Administrator Velnara watched her crops wither in the fields. The human-designed farming systems had failed 3 months ago, and no one knew how to fix them. The soil treatment plants are completely offline, her chief technician reported. Without them, the ground becomes acidic. Nothing will grow. Velnara stared at the reports showing food production dropping every week. Ceres Prime had fed dozens of worlds in this sector. Now they could barely feed themselves. Have we received any response from the council about sending agricultural experts? She asked. They say they're working on it, the technician replied. But all their experts learned from human teachers who are gone now. 3 systems away, the trade station at Beta Centauri was falling apart. The main computer core had crashed, for the 5th time this month, and no one could fix it properly. The original human programmers had built incredibly complex systems that worked perfectly, but were almost impossible to understand. Station Master Corvain watched the diagnostic, screens fill with error messages he couldn't read. How did they make it look so easy? He muttered. His assistant, a young Velkari technician, shook her head. Sir, I've been studying the code for months. It's like they thought in completely different patterns than we do. I can fix small problems, but the core architecture is beyond me. What happens when it fails completely? Corvain asked. The station dies, she said simply. Life support, gravity, atmosphere recycling, everything runs through the main core. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Quantum communication relays went dark one by one. Atmospheric processors shut down permanently. Medical facilities closed when their advanced equipment stopped working. The council called emergency session after emergency session, but they had no solutions. They had spent decades letting humans handle the complicated technical work while they focused on politics and administration. Now they were learning the cost of that dependence. Councillor Zeth Ka presented his latest economic analysis to the Assembly. The numbers were catastrophic. Galactic GDP had contracted by 23% and was still falling. Trade between sectors had dropped by 60%. 3 separate wars had broken out in formerly peaceful regions. We must face reality, he said to the gathered representatives. The galaxy is falling apart without human participation. Senior Councillor Vraktel's response was swift and angry. Terrorist tactics. They are deliberately sabotaging galactic infrastructure to force us to accept their demands. Junior Councillor Felon had been studying the situation carefully. Sir, with respect, they aren't sabotaging anything. They simply took their knowledge with them when they left. The systems are failing because we don't know how to maintain what they built. Then we learn, Vraktel hissed. We managed for millions of years before humans arrived. We will manage again. But Phelan had done his research. He had read the historical records from before human contact. Senior counselor, before humans joined the galaxy, we were not managing well. We were dying. The chamber grew quiet. Phelan continued. The time of shadows, our grandparents called it. Constant warfare between species. Technology that barely worked. Medical care that killed as often as it cured. Humans didn't just join our civilization. They saved it. Historical archives painted a grim picture of pre-human galactic society. Wars that lasted centuries. Billions dead from diseases that humans later cured in months. Entire species extinct from conflicts that humans later learned to prevent. The Draconic Empire had been locked in a bitter war with the Crystal Collective for over 2,000 years. Human diplomats had negotiated peace in just 18 months. The Botanical Confederacy had been slowly dying from a genetic plague until human scientists developed a cure. Even the Council itself had been different. Before humans arrived, it was less a government than a loose alliance of species who spent most of their time arguing about ancient grievances. Human representatives had somehow convinced everyone to focus on building rather than fighting. On the rim world of Talos 4, Dr. Silth worked frantically to save his patients. The medical center's diagnostic equipment had been failing for weeks, and 3 people had already died from treatable conditions. The pattern recognition software is completely corrupted, his medical assistant reported. We can't identify diseases anymore. Dr. Silth remembered working alongside Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team. The humans had made medicine look effortless. They could diagnose complex conditions in minutes and develop treatments that seemed almost miraculous. Did we ever ask them how they did it? He wondered aloud. I don't think we thought we needed to know, his assistant replied sadly. The same realization was spreading across the galaxy. Humans hadn't just shared their technology. They had shared their way of thinking, their approach to problem solving, their ability to see connections that others missed. And now that perspective was gone. The war between the Krell hegemony and the Free Traders Alliance escalated daily. Both sides had been using human-mediated ceasefire agreements for decades. Without neutral arbitrators, every dispute became a battle. The Botanical Confederacy split into 3 rival factions when ancient territorial disagreements resurfaced. Human diplomats had kept these conflicts peaceful for generations. Now neighbor fought neighbor over land that had been shared for centuries. Even worse, new conflicts were emerging. Species that had never been enemies before suddenly found reasons to fight. The careful web of alliances and treaties that humans had helped weave was unraveling thread by thread. In the council chambers, junior members began to speak out more boldly. The evidence was overwhelming. The galaxy was not functioning without human involvement. We need to rescind Resolution 2847C, Councillor Zethka said during one heated session. We need to ask the humans to return. But the senior councillors were not ready to admit their mistake. Absolutely not, Fractel declared. We will not reward their blackmail. It's not blackmail, Phelan argued. They're not threatening us, they're just gone. The distinction was crucial but difficult to accept. Humans weren't holding the galaxy hostage. They had simply decided that the galaxy didn't want them anymore, and acted accordingly. Some council members tried to find middle ground. Perhaps they could modify Resolution 2847C. Make the neural modifications voluntary instead of mandatory. Offer humans some form of compensation or special status. But every attempt at compromise failed. The humans had been monitoring council communications and rejected every proposal before it was officially made. Their message was always the same. We are no longer interested in galactic affairs. President Martinez made this position clear in a public broadcast to the galaxy. The council has made its position known. They believe humans are too dangerous to be trusted with raising our own children. We have accepted their judgment and withdrawn from their society. He paused, looking directly into the camera. We wish you well in your future endeavors. The tone was polite, formal, and absolutely final. As the months passed, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Krell hegemony now controlled over 40 star systems. The once mighty trade networks had collapsed into local clusters. Medical advances had stopped completely. Food shortages were becoming common on worlds that had known plenty for centuries. And in the council chambers, the same senior members who had demanded Resolution 2847C still insisted they had made the right choice. They would weather this crisis. They would adapt and overcome. But younger counselors were beginning to ask darker questions. What if the humans never came back? What if the galaxy really couldn't function without them? What if they had just voted to destroy the very civilization they thought they were protecting? Dr. James Chen stood in his laboratory on Luna Station and smiled at the impossible sight before him. The prototype dimensional fold drive hummed quietly in its containment field, bending space-time in ways that should not have been possible. "Computer, run diagnostic on the fold matrix," he said. "All systems stable," the AI replied. "Dimensional integrity at 99.7%. Energy consumption 34% below theoretical minimum." James laughed with pure joy. For the first time in decades, he didn't have to worry about whether his research might destabilize galactic power balance. The Council wasn't watching over his shoulder anymore, demanding that he slow down his work for the sake of political comfort. "Sarah, come look at this," he called to his research partner. Dr. Sarah Kim hurried over from her workstation. "Did you solve the resonance problem?" "Better," James said. "I eliminated it entirely. Turns out we were approaching the whole thing wrong because we were trying to make it compatible with Council safety standards." Sarah stared at the readings. "James, this could revolutionize space travel. Ships could cross the galaxy in days instead of months." "I know," James said. "And we can actually build it now." It was the same story across human space. Scientists who had been holding back their research for diplomatic reasons were finally free to push the boundaries of what was possible. Engineers were designing ships and stations using technologies they had kept classified for centuries. On Mars, General Catherine Morrison reviewed the latest military reports with deep satisfaction. The human defense forces were stronger than they had ever been, and getting stronger every month. "The new shield technology is performing beyond expectations," Admiral Chen reported. "Quantum-locked armor plating can absorb energy weapons fire and convert it directly to ship power." "What about the consciousness-driven tactical systems?" Morrison asked. "Online and functional," the Admiral replied. "Reaction times are now measured in milliseconds instead of seconds. Our ships can respond to threats almost before they happen." Morrison nodded approvingly. These were technologies humans had developed but never deployed, knowing that revealing them would only increase Council paranoia about human military capabilities. "And the void cannon prototype?" Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. "Still theoretical but promising. The ability to create temporary black holes would give us significant tactical advantages." Morrison understood the careful language. The void cannon wouldn't just give them tactical advantages. It would make human warships essentially unstoppable. A single frigate equipped with the technology could destroy entire fleets. But that was exactly why they had never built it before. The Council already feared human military power. If they had known about weapons like this, Resolution 2847C would have passed by an even larger margin. Now it didn't matter what the Council thought. The cultural renaissance was just as impressive as the technological one. Human art, music, and literature flourished without the need to consider alien sensibilities. Writers explored themes that had been considered too controversial for galactic audiences. Musicians experimented with harmonies that other species found disturbing. Artists created works that celebrated uniquely human perspectives. Emma Chen, now 7 years old, sat in her art class on Earth and painted a picture of herself as a starship captain. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, encouraged her dreams without worrying about whether exploration and adventure were too aggressive for young minds. "When I grow up, I want to discover new worlds," Emma announced to her class. "That sounds wonderful," Ms. Rodriguez replied. "What kind of worlds do you want to find?" "All of them," Emma said with the enthusiasm that only children could manage. 2 years ago, that conversation might have been reported to Council observers as evidence of dangerous human expansionist tendencies. Now it was just a little girl dreaming about the future. The economic transformation was remarkable. With human resources no longer flowing outward to support galactic infrastructure, they turned inward to build something spectacular. Cities grew taller and more beautiful. Transportation systems became faster and more efficient. Standard of living increased across all human worlds. The Terraforming Corporation, no longer bound by Council environmental regulations, began transforming dead worlds into gardens at a pace that astonished even their own engineers. What used to take decades now took years. "We're not just making worlds habitable," Director Walsh explained to the board of directors. "We're making them perfect, custom atmospheres, carefully designed ecosystems, weather systems that never produce natural disasters." "How many new worlds can we prepare?" asked Chairman Davies. "At current rates? 50 worlds per year, Walsh replied. But that's just the beginning. As our technology improves, we could be preparing hundreds of worlds annually. The implications were staggering. Humanity could expand faster than any species in galactic history. They would never need to fight for living space or resources again. Meanwhile, the human military was conducting its own quiet revolution. Training programs that had been restricted by Council oversight were now operating at full capacity. Soldiers learned tactics that had been considered too aggressive for peacekeeping forces. Lieutenant Torres, recently returned from Council space, was amazed by the changes in human military doctrine. "Sir, the new battle strategies are incredible, but they're also terrifying." Colonel Martinez nodded. "We spent so many years fighting with one hand tied behind our back that we forgot what we were truly capable of. The Council wanted us to be peacekeepers, so we learned to minimize casualties and avoid collateral damage. Now we're remembering how to win wars." "Is that necessarily a good thing?" Torres asked. Martinez considered the question carefully. "Lieutenant, for 3 centuries we have been the galaxy's protectors. We fought their battles, solved their problems, and died for their causes. And in return they decided we were too dangerous to be trusted with our own children." He paused, looking out the window at Earth's blue sky. "Maybe it's time we remembered that we're not the galaxy's servants. We're one of its most powerful species, and we've been acting like we needed their permission to exist." The shift in human psychology was perhaps the most important change of all. For generations, humans had defined themselves in relation to other species. They were the helpful ones, the peaceful ones, the ones who could be trusted to mediate disputes and keep the peace. Now they were rediscovering what it meant to be human without external constraints. Dr. Elena Vasquez, back on Earth after her forced departure from the research station, was leading a team developing new atmospheric processors. But these weren't designed to help other species terraform their worlds. These were for human expansion. "We could have 100 new colonies within 5 years," she told President Martinez during a briefing, "completely self-sufficient with environments tailored to human needs." "What about the other species who might want to colonize the same regions?" Martinez asked. Elena shrugged. "What about them? They made it clear they don't want our help anymore. That doesn't mean we have to avoid areas they might be interested in." It was a new attitude for humanity. For the first time in centuries, they were putting their own needs first. The Council's monitoring stations at the edge of human space reported increasing activity. Human ships were moving in patterns that suggested major expansion efforts. New colonies were being established at an unprecedented rate, but most disturbing were the energy signatures coming from human research facilities. The readings suggested technologies far in advance of anything in current galactic use. "They're developing weapons," Senior Counselor Vrachtel declared when presented with the intelligence reports. "Or defensive systems," Junior Counselor Felon suggested. "After all, they're now surrounded by a galaxy that has declared them a threat." "The distinction is irrelevant," Vrachtel hissed. "They are preparing for war." But Felon wasn't sure about that. The human activities looked less like preparation for conquest and more like preparation for independence. They were building a civilization that didn't need anyone else, and that perhaps was more frightening than any weapon, because a humanity that didn't need the galaxy was a humanity that had no reason to care what happened to it. As human space grew stronger and more advanced, the rest of the galaxy continued its slow collapse. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. In Council space, wars raged and systems failed. In human space, peace and prosperity flourished. Some younger Council members began to whisper dangerous questions. Had they made a mistake? Had they driven away the very species that kept their civilization functioning? But the senior counselors refused to consider such possibilities. Humans were dangerous. The galaxy was better off without them, even if the evidence suggested otherwise. 2 years after the human withdrawal, War Commander Theklos stood on the bridge of the Krell flagship Dominion and gazed at his greatest prize yet. Through the viewscreen, he could see the core worlds, the heart of galactic civilization, defenseless before his massive fleet. "Sir, we have visual confirmation of the Council homeworld," his tactical officer reported. "Their defense fleet is moving to intercept, but they are significantly outgunned." Theklos clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. 57 star systems now flew Krell banners. The Free Traders Alliance had collapsed completely 3 months ago. The Botanical Confederacy was too busy fighting its civil war to oppose him. The galaxy was finally within his grasp, Open a channel to the council, he ordered. The main screen shifted to show the panicked face of Senior Counselor Vrachtel. Behind him, Teklos could see smoke and emergency lights in what had once been the galaxy's most prestigious government chamber. War Commander, Vrachtel said, trying to maintain dignity despite the circumstances. Surely we can negotiate some arrangement. Negotiate? Teklos laughed. You had 3 centuries of human peacekeepers preventing this moment. They kept the strong from taking what was rightfully theirs. Now they are gone, and nature takes its course. He gestured at his fleet. 1,000 warships, Counselor. How many do you have? 50, 100? Your defense forces are pathetic because you relied on humans to do your fighting for you. The transmission ended. Teklos turned to his weapons officer. Begin bombardment of their orbital defense platforms. We take the core worlds today. In the council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives from dozens of species screamed at each other in panic. Some blamed the humans for abandoning them. Others blamed the senior counselors for driving them away. But blame would not stop the Krell fleet. Junior Counselor Felon grabbed the emergency communicator with shaking hands. Open priority channel to human space, he ordered. All frequencies, maximum broadcast power. The response came within minutes. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen. Older now, but still sharp-eyed. She was no longer an ambassador. Her title now was Director of Human Colonial Affairs. Director Chen, Felon said, his voice cracking. We need your help. The Krell fleet is attacking the core worlds. Our defenses are failing. Sarah's expression remained completely neutral. I see, that's unfortunate. Please, Felon begged. We know we made mistakes. We're willing to rescind Resolution 2847C completely. We can offer reparations, territorial, concessions, anything you want. Behind Sarah, Felon could see other human officials. Their faces showed no emotion, no urgency, no concern. They were watching the galaxy burn with the detached interest of observers studying an experiment. Junior Counselor, Sarah said calmly, 2 years ago your government decided that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with our own children. You wanted to cut into their brains to make us more acceptable to your sensibilities. She paused, her gaze never wavering. We accepted your judgment and withdrew from galactic affairs. But we were wrong, Felon cried. We see that now. The galaxy needs human protection. Sarah's smile was colder than space itself. No, Counselor. You were right. We are dangerous. We're just not dangerous to the people we choose to protect. Other, desperate messages flooded human communication networks. The aquatic realms offered to become human protectorates. The Crystal Collective promised to share their most advanced technologies. Even some Krell worlds, seeing the writing on the wall, sent secret offers to switch sides. But the response from human space was uniform and final. Every message was answered by the same recorded statement from President Martinez. The Galactic Council has made its position clear. They believe humans are too dangerous to participate in civilized galactic society. We have accepted this judgment and will respect their wishes by maintaining our separation from Council space. The recording continued. We wish all galactics, species well in their future endeavors and hope they can resolve their current difficulties without requiring assistance from dangerous species like ourselves. The diplomatic language was perfect, polite, and absolutely devastating. The humans were throwing the Council's own words back at them with surgical precision. As the Krell fleet closed in on the core worlds, a few Council representatives made desperate attempts to reach individual humans they had worked with in the past. Dr. Elena Vasquez received dozens of messages begging her to return and help repair failing atmospheric systems. Admiral Webb was offered command of the entire Galactic Defense Force. All of them received the same reply. Thank you for your message. Unfortunately, I am no longer involved in galactic affairs. The final message came from Counselor Zeth Kai. Personally, he sent a private communication directly to President Martinez, bypassing all official channels. The message was simple and heartfelt. We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake. Please help us. The galaxy is dying without you. Martinez's reply was equally direct. Counselor, you made your choice when you decided we were too dangerous for peace. Now live with the consequences of peace without us. The Krell fleet reached the Council homeworld at 14:30 Galactic Standard Time. The orbital defense platforms lasted 17 minutes. The planetary shields failed after 34 minutes. The surrender came 3 hours and 12 minutes after the first shots were fired. War Commander Theklos accepted the Council's surrender in person. standing in the same chamber where Resolution 2847C had been passed. Many of the same counselors who had voted against humanity now knelt before their new Krell overlord. "Where are your human protectors now?" Theklos asked mockingly as he placed the Krell banner on the council podium. "Why don't they come save you?" Senior Counselor Vraktel, his pride finally broken, spoke the truth for the first time in years. "Because we told them they were too dangerous to be trusted. Because we tried to mutilate their children. Because we were fools." The galaxy watched as the council fell. Some species submitted to Krell rule immediately. Others tried to fight and were crushed. A few managed to maintain independence by hiding in remote systems or negotiating tributary status. But the galactic civilization that had existed for millennia was finished. The careful balance of power, the networks of trade and communication, the systems that had prevented galactic warfare, all of it collapsed within months. And humanity watched it happen from the safety of their expanding space, with the detached interest of anthropologists studying a failed civilization. Some human colonies received refugees fleeing the chaos. These aliens were treated with kindness and respect, given food, shelter, and medical care. But they were also given a clear message. They could stay as guests, but they would live under human law and human authority. Most accepted gratefully. After experiencing the collapse of their own civilization, human rule seemed remarkably peaceful and prosperous. Emma Chen, now 9 years old, asked her father about the refugees during dinner one evening. "Daddy, why are the alien people so sad?" James Chen looked at his daughter, the same daughter the council had wanted to lobotomize, and chose his words carefully. "They lived in a place where the people in charge made bad decisions. Now they're learning that actions have consequences. Will we help them rebuild their home?" Emma asked. James glanced at his wife, Dr. Sarah Kim, who had returned from her research station to help raise their children in a galaxy that finally recognized they belonged to their parents, not to a government committee. "Maybe someday, sweetheart," he said. "But first they need to learn to make better decisions." On Earth, Sarah Chen stood in her office looking out at the stars. She had received one final message from the ruins of the council. It was from Dr. Silth, her old research partner from the medical center on Talos 4. "Sarah," the message said, "I know you probably won't respond to this, but I had to try. Our medical facilities are completely offline. People are dying from diseases we used to cure easily. Could you at least send us the treatment protocols? Not as governments, but as one doctor asking another." Sarah deleted the message without replying. She had stopped being a doctor to the galaxy the day they declared her species too dangerous to trust with children. Her aide knocked on the door. "Director, the colonial expansion reports are ready for your review." Sarah nodded and turned back to her desk. Humanity had work to do. They had worlds to terraform, cities to build, and a civilization to expand. They had spent 3 centuries taking care of everyone else. Now it was time to take care of themselves. Outside her window, human ships moved through space carrying colonists to new worlds, scientists to research stations, and soldiers to defend the growing borders of human space. The ships were beautiful and powerful, using technologies that would have terrified the Council if they had ever seen them. The galaxy had taught humanity a valuable lesson. Sometimes the only way to prove you were keeping the peace was to let others discover what war without limits really looked like. And sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do to your enemies was exactly what they asked for. The humans had been declared too dangerous for galactic civilization. So they had removed themselves from it entirely, taking their protection, their innovation, and their mercy with them. The galaxy was discovering too late the difference between having human guardians and needing them.